The plastic bag was still warm when he unlocked the door. Daniel nudged it open with his shoulder, the hallway light flickering the way it always did, and the smell of bread, yeasty, toasty, a little sweet, filled the small apartment like something too good for that place. It was late. The kind of late where neighbors' TVs were already low, and the street outside hummed softer. He kicked off his boots quietly so he wouldn't wake her, set the bag on the table, and exhaled the kind of breath single parents learn to hold all day. He shouldn't have brought it home, not really. Staff weren't supposed to take leftovers from the cafe, at least not officially. But Fridays was slow at the bakery corner, where he washed dishes and mopped floors, and if the bread didn't get sold by closing, it got tossed. Perfectly good loaves, sourdough rings, soft rolls, a few slices of brioche straight into a black trash bag. Tonight, his boss had looked at him over the counter and just said, "If it goes home with you." I didn't see it. So he wrapped it up, grateful and embarrassed and tired all at once. The apartment was small but clean, the way he wanted it for her. Second-hand sofa, chipped table, drawings on the fridge, done in Frick marker. One bedroom they shared by turns. She slept there on the weekends, he slept there during the week, and the other nights he made a bed on the couch. The kitchen light buzzed. He untied the bag and let the heat out. The bread was golden, soft, still smelling like the ovens. He smiled, despite himself. "Wait till she sees this," he whispered. From down the hall, a soft voice floated out. "Daddy?" He winced. "Hey, Bug. I thought you were asleep." She shuffled in, feet dragging on the laminate, hair in a crooked ponytail. 7 years old, wearing the Chew-Big t-shirt he'd bought at a thrift store because it had a unicorn on it. Her name was Emma, but he rarely said it. He preferred Bug, Peanut, my girl, names like nets to keep her close. "You came late," she said, rubbing her eyes. "Yeah, you got stuck cleaning the ovens." He nodded toward the table. "But look what I brought." Her eyes widened immediately, hunger and surprise lighting up her face. "Bread? Fresh," he said proudly. "From the cafe. Real bakery stuff, not the bag kind." She climbed onto the chair, small legs swinging, nose over the bag like a puppy. "It smells like Grandma's house," she said. That hit him right in the chest. His mother had rebaked on Sundays, filling the whole house with warmth. Emma barely remembered her, but somehow the smell had carried. Food does that, it carries people. He found the butter in the fridge, cheap, but real, and a little jar of honey someone from church had given him. He sliced the bread with the dullest knife in the drawer, steam curling out like breath. He handed her a piece on a plate. "Here, midnight feast." She giggled. "It's not midnight." "It is if Daddy says it is." They ate together at the small table, the kitchen light buzzing overhead, the world outside dark and not asking for anything. For a moment, it was perfect. Just bread and butter and a little girl with crumbs on her mouth. Then came the part he wasn't expecting. She chewed slowly, looking at him the way kids do when they're about to ask something important. "Daddy?" "Yeah." "Do we not have food?" The question landed like a stone dropped into still water. He froze, hand halfway to the honey jar. What? She wasn't accusing. She wasn't scared. She was just noticing. 7-year-old noticing. She looked at the bread again, then at him. "You were happy because it was free, right?" He swallowed, throat suddenly dry. He'd thought he'd hidden it. The counting, the carefulness, the days when dinner was rice and whatever was on sale. The way he lit up when someone said, "You can take that home." Kids see what adults think they've disguised. "Why do you ask that, Bug?" he said, keeping his voice soft. She swung her legs again, eyes on the bread like she was studying it. "'Cause Miss Ramirez at school said we can take leftovers from lunch if we need. And she said sometimes dads and mums work a lot, so they can buy food. And you work a lot. She looked up at him. So, do we not have food? There it was. Not anger, not complaint. A child trying to understand the shape of her world. Why meals looked different at Mum's house. Why Dad smiled too big over free bread. Why fridge days were sometimes full and sometimes echoing. He felt heat prick behind his eyes. He blinked it away. We have food, he said. We just sometimes get extra, that's all. Because it's free. Because it's a blessing, he corrected gently. Because people are kind. She frowned, thinking, but why do people give us food if we already have? He almost laughed. Because how do you explain inflation and rent and child support and late paychecks and pride to someone who still paints rainbows on printer paper? How do you explain that sometimes enough is a thin, breakable line? How do you tell her you took home bread because you wanted her to feel rich for once? You like it? He asked instead. She nodded, mouth full. It's the best bread. Then that's why, he said. Because I wanted you to have the best bread. But she was still looking at him, eyes bright in the kitchen light, and she asked the question that cut through all his practiced answers. Daddy, do you eat at work so I can eat here? He didn't answer right away. He couldn't. The truth sat between them like a third plate. He did. He ate staff meals and leftover soup so he wouldn't have to cook much at home. He drank water instead of juice. He stretched his lunch so dinner could be hers. He'd done it so many times it had become invisible, even to him, but not to her. She put her piece of bread down, the bite marks small and perfect. You can have mine, she said simply. I'm not hungry anymore. And that was the moment. The slight, unexpected, almost threatening shift. Not danger from outside, but danger from love. The kind where your own child starts sacrificing, and you realize if you don't answer right, you'll teach her the wrong lesson about worth and scarcity and who deserves to eat. He leaned forward, voice thick. No, you eat. That's my job. But you're my dad, she said. Like that explained everything. I want you to. He laughed once, the sound ragged. You're gonna make me cry at the table, kid. Why? Because you saw too much, he said. You always see too much. He wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand, embarrassed even though it was just them. The kitchen, the smell of bread, the late hour, it all became a scene he knew he'd remember. Because sometimes the thing that breaks you is not a bill or a fight or a closed door. Sometimes it's a 7-year-old offering you half a slice of bread. He reached into the plastic bag again and found more than he thought. 2 rolls, a small loaf, even a cinnamon bun someone forgot. He spread it out like a feast. Look, he said, forcing cheer into his voice. We have plenty. God's showing off tonight. She giggled. God likes bread? He sent. Manna, he said automatically, remembering Sunday school. So yeah, he knows good carbs. She took another bite, reassured. The tension eased, but inside him, something had been nudged awake. A question. If she was already noticing this, what else was she noticing? What else was she worrying about quietly with her crayons and math homework? He looked around their small kitchen, the second-hand appliances, the coupons on the fridge, the calendar with custody days marked in green. It was all normal, manageable, and yet, through her eyes, it looked fragile. He glanced toward the corner where he kept a faded tin box, an old biscuit tin his mother had given him. He kept odd things in it, a photo, a folded letter, receipts, and, lately, he'd started putting small bills there. Emergency money, bread money. He hadn't meant for her to know about it, but kids see everything. And that night, with bread still warm on the table, and tears drying on his cheeks, he knew this wasn't just about a meal. It was about a hidden economy of love he'd been running silently, and a daughter who had just found the ledger. The next morning, the kitchen didn't smell like warm bread anymore. It smelled like instant coffee and quiet questions. Daniel was up before the sun, packing Emma's small lunch one sandwich. An apple sliced thin so it looked fuller, and the last piece of the bakery bread wrapped carefully in wax paper. He moved quietly, but not quietly enough. She padded in with her blanket over her shoulders, hair messy, eyes still swollen from sleep. "You're leaving?" she asked, voice small. "In a bit," he said. "Wanted to make yours first." She watched him, chin on the table, while he spread the peanut butter. He could feel her looking, not at the food, but at him. Kids who've noticed lack don't stop noticing the next day. Once they see the seams, they see all of them. "Did you eat?" she asked. "Yeah," he lied. She squinted like she didn't believe him, but she let it go. Then her eyes slid past him, toward the counter, where the old biscuit tin sat, faded flowers on the limb, metal dented, the kind of thing most people would toss. To her it was treasure. To him, it was the place where he tried to keep emergencies small. "Dad," she said slowly, "that box, is that where the money goes?" He stiffened. He'd forgotten to put it away after counting yesterday. After she went to bed, he'd sat at that same table and emptied his pockets, 2 crumpled tens, a 5 and some coins. He'd divided them the way he always did: rent, bus, school, food. Then he'd taken the smallest piece and put it in the box. Not for bills, for moments. For when her eyes lit up about an ice cream truck or a school trip. For when he wanted to tell her yes instead of "we'll see." "Sometimes," he said, trying to sound casual. "Why?" She shrugged, but it was the forced shrug of a kid, pretending not to care. "I just saw you put it there. I didn't know we had a special money." "It's not special money," he said, turning to face her. "It's just for when I want to make you happy. I'm already happy," she said, and that did him in all over again. He leaned on the counter, rubbing his face. "I know. I just want to keep you that way." She nodded, satisfied with that answer, for now. But the box had entered the story. Once something enters a child's story, it doesn't leave. He walked her to school, hand in hand, the cold biting their ears. On the way she said, "I can help, you know." "With what?" "With money," she said. "I can ask Ms. Ramirez if I can bring home extra." She said we can if we need. That small, pure attempt at fixing adult problems made his chest tighten. "You don't have to do that," he said. "That's my job." "But last night you said blessings," she said. "What if I bring you a blessing?" He looked down at her bright face in the gray morning. "Then I'll take it," he said. "But not because we don't have. Because you wanted to give." She beamed. "Okay." He watched her run into the schoolyard, backpack bouncing, and thought, "She's starting to count. I have to show her what to count." Work was a blur of plates and steam, and the sharp smell of lemon cleaner. At the cafe, nobody knew he'd cried over bread. Nobody knew his daughter had stared poverty in the face and offered him half a slice. They talked about football and deliveries and the new seasonal cupcake. Life went on. It wasn't until his break, sitting on an upside-down bucket by the back door, that he pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos. Emma with ice cream. Emma at the park. Emma holding a loaf of bread bigger than her face. He hovered over a picture of his mom, the last one taken in her kitchen, flour on her hands, hair in a bun. She'd grown up in worse than this. She'd stretched meals until they were more love than food. And she used to tell him, "The day your child offers you what little she has, don't let her think it's her job to feed you. Your job is to teach her abundance, even when all you have is half." He locked the phone and stared at the alley. "Okay," he said to nobody. "Then I have to show her more than bread." That night, he decided not to wait for leftovers. He stopped at the discount grocer on the way home. He didn't buy much, 1 pack of chicken thighs, carrots, rice, but he bought it on purpose, full price, like a declaration. When he came in, he held the bag up in the doorway. Look who's eating like royalty tonight. She laughed, running over. Chicken? Chicken. He cooked with music on, humming, making the house smell like choice. Emma sat at the table coloring. She kept glancing at the biscuit tin. It sat where he'd left it, lid closed, innocent. He pretended not to notice. "Can I draw on it?" she asked suddenly. "On what?" "The box." He almost said no automatically. It had been his mum's. It was his quiet adult place. But he saw the way she asked, careful, like she was asking to be let into a secret. So he said, "Yeah, but use the markers that wipe off." She hopped down and grabbed her art kit. She circled the box like it was a patient. Then, with her tongue sticking out in concentration, she drew a big, lopsided heart on the limb. Inside it, in shaky kid letters, she wrote, "For Yus." He swallowed. "You like it?" she asked. "It's perfect." They ate at the table again, this time with real dinner. He watched her chew, satisfied, untroubled now. The question from last night had loosened something in her, and his answer, his effort, had sewn it back up. For tonight at least, she wasn't wondering if her dad skipped meals for her. After dinner, she went to her room to play. He cleared dishes, wiped the table, then sat with the biscuit tin. The heart stared back at him. "For us." He ran his thumb over the marker lines. Then, almost without thinking, he opened it. The familiar items were there. Old receipts, the folded photo of his mom, the emergency 22 crumpled fives. And he frowned. Something new, a pink hair tie. And beneath it, folded small, a piece of notebook paper with princesses on the margin. He opened it. "Daddy, I want to help the money box grow. I love bread and I love you. Emma." He stared at it, throat burning. He looked inside again. At the very bottom, like treasure, were 3 coins. 25, 25, 10, 80 cents. Her savings. She'd put them in when he wasn't looking. That was the revelation, quiet and undeniable. She'd seen, she'd understood, and she'd decided to participate. She wasn't just a child being fed. She was trying to become a provider too. And while it was beautiful, it was also dangerous, because a child who grows up believing she must provide might never learn to receive. He placed the coins on the table. He heard her humming in the other room, singing to her dolls. He could leave it, let it be their first joint deposit, or he could use this moment to rewrite the story. He chose. He went to his jacket on the hook, dug deep, and pulled out the tip money he'd gotten that day, small, but more than usual because he'd stayed late. Came back to the table, opened his own wallet, and added to the pile in the box 5 swans, all of it, until the coins didn't look lonely anymore. Then he took her note and placed it on top, like a crown. When she came back in, he called her over. "Hey, banker." She lit up. "Banker?" "Yeah, come here." She climbed onto the chair beside him. He turned the box so she could see. Her eyes widened at the new bills. "Whoa, you know what this is?" he asked. "Our money. Our future money," he corrected. "You put in because you wanted to help." That was beautiful. "But I don't ever want you to think you have to fix grown-up things. That's my lane." "But I want to help you," she said. "And you did," he said. "You reminded me to fill it." He tapped the bills. "This is me doing my job." She rested her chin on the edge of the table. "So I can still give." "You can always give," he said, "but give from joy. Not from worry." She considered that, mouth twisting the way it did when she was memorizing something important. "From joy," she repeated. "From joy," he echoed. The apartment felt different after that, fuller, like a blessing had actually settled. He closed the tin, the heart on top still fresh. He put it back on the fridge, not secret, visible, shared. Later that night, when she was asleep, he sat in the dark living room with the TV off. He listened to the soft hum of the fridge, the tiny breaths from the room down the hall. He thought about his mum's kitchen, about the way she always made extra bread in case. He thought about the cafe, throwing away food at night. He thought about how his daughter's question had dragged what was invisible into the light. He picked up his phone and typed a note to himself. Teach Emma that we always have enough to share, even if it's only bread. He set the phone down and let his head fall back. Outside in the hallway, someone dropped their groceries, a soft thud, then a muttered curse. He almost got up to help, almost opened the door, but he didn't, not because he didn't care, because he knew now. When she woke up tomorrow and saw that box on the fridge with her heart on it, she'd ask again. And next time, he'd have more than bread to show her. The next Saturday morning came with the kind of sunlight that makes everything look possible again. A thin golden light crept across the floor, touching the biscuit tin first, as if the universe itself wanted to bless it. Daniel sat at the table with his coffee cooling beside him, the lid open, bills and coins spread out neatly like a map of his small victories. Emma was still asleep. She'd spent the previous night drawing stars on paper, cutting them out and sticking them to the walls above her bed. "So we'll never forget where the light is," she had said, and somehow that line stuck to him all night. He stirred his coffee, watching the coins glint. Since the night she'd drawn the heart and called it our money, the tin had become something else almost alive. Every day, when he came home from work, he dropped something inside. A coin, a note, a folded receipt with a dream scribbled on the back. It wasn't about saving anymore. It was about believing they could. That morning, he decided they'd spend a little of it, not because they needed to, but because he wanted her to see abundance in action. When Emma padded into the kitchen, hair wild and eyes still soft with sleep, he said, "Get dressed, Bug. We're going on a mission." "What kind of mission?" she asked. "The breakfast kind." She laughed, confused but happy. They ended up at a small diner, 2 streets over, the one with the red stalls and a jukebox that still worked. He hadn't eaten out with her in months. The waitress smiled when she saw him slide into the booth across from his daughter. "Coffee for you, sweetheart?" she asked Emma playfully. "Hot chocolate," Emma said, proud. Daniel smiled, "And 2 pancakes. Extra butter." When the food came, he watched her eat. No counting, no guilt, just joy. The sound of her fork against the plate felt like the sound of peace. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was surviving. He felt like he was living. After breakfast, as they left, Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Can we leave something for the next people?" He frowned, like, "What?" She reached into her small jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. On it, in bright pink crayon, she'd written, "If you find this, I hope your day gets better. Love." Daniel blinked. "When did you make that?" "Yesterday. In case I ever see someone sad." He swallowed hard. "And you want to leave it here?" She nodded. "You said, giving from joy is magic." He smiled through the ache in his throat. "Then let's make some magic." She tucked the note under the syrup bottle before they left. The waitress would find it later and tape it to the counter. And by the end of the day, 10 more notes from strangers would appear beside it. That was how the story started spreading, not through cameras this time, but through quiet echoes of kindness. A few weeks later, Daniel noticed something strange at the cafe where he worked. Customers began leaving small notes with their tips, messages written on napkins and receipts. "You reminded me of my dad. I grew up with free bread too." Kindness makes things taste better. He didn't understand at first. Then one afternoon, his manager came over with her phone. "This yours?" she said, showing him a post. It was a picture of the his biscuit tin sitting on the kitchen counter. The words "for us" written in pink marker. The photo wasn't his. It had been taken by someone else. Below it, a caption read, "My friend's daughter drew this on her dad's savings box. He told her they'd always have enough to share. I think about it every day." The post had thousands of shares. Comments poured in from people across the country, talking about how they'd started their own fours, jars, boxes, envelopes, some for groceries, some for school supplies, some just for hope. Daniel stared at the screen, stunned. His private life, their tiny world, had somehow become a seed in other people's. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That evening, he told Emma. She gasped, "Our box is famous." He chuckled, "Something like that. But it's not about being famous. It's about what it means. What does it mean? It means people want to believe in enough," he said, "and maybe we helped them remember how." Her eyes glowed. "Can we make another one? For someone else?" That night, they did. Together, they found an old cookie tin, smaller, blue instead of silver. Emma wrote on it with green marker this time, "For you." She filled it with little things, 2 crayons, a sticker, a single dollar from her allowance. Daniel added a note that said, "This is for the day you think you have nothing left. You do." The next morning, they left it outside the diner where they'd eaten pancakes, next to the newspaper stand. A week later, when they passed by again, it was gone. That might have been the end of it, if not for what arrived in their mailbox a few days later. A small envelope, no return address. Inside, a Polaroid. The tin there, tin on a different table now, surrounded by strangers laughing. On the back of the photo, in looping handwriting, "It found us when we needed it. Thank you." Daniel showed it to Emma, and she squealed with delight. "See, Daddy? The magic worked." He nodded, smiling, though his eyes burned. "Yeah, Bug. It really did." But the real revelation came that weekend, when his boss at the cafe approached him. "You free Sunday?" she asked. "We're doing something special. You'll want to see it." He went, curious, not expecting much. When he arrived, the cafe looked different, tables pushed aside, a small crowd gathered, local reporters setting up cameras. On the counter, where the day-old bread usually sat, there was now a wooden sign carved with careful letters. "The For US program, take what you need, leave what you can." A line of baskets filled the counter, loaves of bread, fruit, sandwiches wrapped neatly. And at the end of the line, taped beside the register, was a photograph of Emma's biscuit tin. Daniel stood frozen. His boss smiled at him. "People kept talking about that post. We figured if one dad could make hope stretch this far, maybe a cafe could too." He couldn't speak. All he could do was nod, staring at the rows of food that would no longer be thrown away. Later that evening, when he told Emma, she listened wide-eyed, swinging her legs on the couch. "So now everyone can have bread." "Everyone," he said. She grinned. "Even God would like that." He laughed, because he knew she was right. That night, after she fell asleep, Daniel walked quietly to the kitchen. He looked at the biscuit tin, the one still sitting on the fridge. The heart had started to fade, marker lines softened from time, but its meaning had grown a root of far beyond their walls. He opened it one last time. Inside was the same folded note from Emma. "I love bread and I love you." He added something new, a photograph of the cafe sign, folded neatly. Then he closed the lid, whispering, "For us, for them, for whomever needs to remember." The city outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with unseen movement, people helping people, passing loaves, leaving notes, starting their own tiny revolutions of care. He looked out the window at the lights spilling across the street. For the first time in years, he didn't feel small. He felt connected. He felt like every tear, every skipped meal, every leftover loaf had led here to proof that kindness multiplies. And somewhere, under another flickering kitchen light, Another single dad was bringing home leftover bread, not knowing that by morning the world would already be waiting to listen. The loop had begun again. Sunday mornings always carried a quiet kind of grace. The city still slept, the world unhurried, and sunlight slid through the blinds in thin golden ribbons. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee warming his hands. Across from him, the biscuit tin gleamed faintly in the light, its pink heart faded now, but still clear enough to read. For us, he'd stopped counting what was inside. Somewhere along the way, the box had become less about money and more about meaning. Every coin, every note, every folded scrap of kindness they'd put inside had multiplied far beyond what he could measure. Emma ran in, her socks slipping on the linoleum. "Dad, look." She held up a flyer she'd torn from the cafe window the day before. On it, a photo of the bread baskets and the new program's logo. The 4US project, feeding families, sharing hope. "They made more places like yours," she said proudly. "One in the library, one at the park." Daniel smiled. "Looks like you started a movement, Bug." She giggled. "No, we did." He leaned back, watching her beam, and thought about how far they'd come, from a single loaf of bread rescued from the trash to something that had fed strangers they'd never meet. The thought filled him with a quiet, aching gratitude. "Hey," he said softly, "do you remember the first time we ate that bread?" "Yeah," she said. "You cried." He laughed, shaking his head. "You always remember the embarrassing parts." "You said it was a blessing," she replied, smiling. "And you were right." They sat in that comfortable silence that only love can build, the kind where no words are needed, where every sound, the hum of the fridge, the clink of a coffee spoon, the faint bird song outside, feels like proof of being alive. Daniel stood and walked to the fridge. He opened the biscuit tin, not to take or add, but just to look. Inside, the same folded note from Emma rested on top of the photo of the cafe. He added one more thing, a small slip of paper, freshly written. "We had enough all along. We just had to see it." He closed the lid gently and kissed it with his fingertips. "For whoever opens you next," he whispered. Later that day, they took a walk through the park. Near the benches, by the community pantry, Emma spotted something new, a small tin box painted blue, sitting on the ledge. Across its lid, written in green marker, were the words, "For them." Emma gasped. "Daddy, look! Someone made another one!" Daniel smiled, his heart swelling with the same quiet wonder that had started it all. He placed his hand over hers. "See, Bug? The world's still passing it on." As they walked away, a breeze lifted through the trees, carrying the smell of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. And somewhere in that simple scent, he heard the echo of their first night, the warmth, the hunger, the love. The loop was still alive, and it would keep going as long as someone, somewhere, remembered to share their bread.